This is cool.
What's up? Welcome, CFC fans. We are here at Finley Stadium for Chatted Up, a special edition of the podcast, of the live show. We're here, again, at Finley Stadium as they're getting ready to play a friendly against Atlanta United. I'm your host, Greg Larnard, alongside my good friend, Mr. Maggie Malcolm Harris. What's up, dog?
What's up, brother? How are you?
You're great.
It is good
Easy with
to
this
see
ice
you.
over here.
Oh, yeah. Come on, man. The ice bear is in the
Be
building.
careful with that hand.
Be careful
I
with that
I was
ice.
talking about the ice here.
I'm so sorry.
No.
About cup me in my hand.
Uh-huh.
How are you, champion?
I'm doing great.
Yeah,
Doing
you
great.
are
It's good to be a
great.
champion. For real. We're still celebrating the SoCon championship from the UTC Mocs. And to his left, Mr. CG, Mr. Chase Green, in the building. What's up, big dog?
Baby? This is one of the coolest
Oh, yeah,
atmospheres.
for sure.
We're about to have like legit Major League Soccer players out here warming up.
Behind us.
Yes.
It's a good shot. It's very quiet now, but as the day goes on, we're going to have the players behind us start to warm up. The fans are going to filter in. The Chatahooligans are going to be right to our right over here. It's going to be wild as we get ready for this friendly. It's the third time that CFC and Atlanta United have faced off against each other here in Chattanooga. It's a really cool event for our city to bring an MLS club, a Major League Soccer club, here to Chattanooga. And CFC getting into the MLS Next Pro League. This will be their second year in that. So a lot of cool things happening here, soccer-wise, footy-wise. Behind the scenes, we got our man Joseph and we got our man Grant. Grant, the intern, is back with us. He's home from Alabama, back in the building. And, we won't hold it against him that he is a Crimson Tide. Anyways, we're playing Auburn today anyways for the Vols, so it is what it is. We're going to have a lot of different guests coming up. We'll run it back to front. Coming up with us at 2:20-ish, we're going to talk Atlanta United FC with Doug Roberson. He covers Atlanta United for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And then we've got Matt from the Section 109 podcast talking CFC. But joining us now is the best friend of Max Chadwick, who's a really good friend to us and pseudo-best friend to Paul Feinbaum.
Pseudo-best friend.
Yeah. He also does a lot of coverage for the PFF College Football Podcast. He is also a Pro Football Focus analyst, and he is here with us to talk all about the NFL playoffs. Put your hands together and welcome our man, Mr. Dalton Wasserman, right here on the show. First time. What's up, Dalton?
Fantastic. How you guys doing? I'll tell you what, you do have a fantastic setting out there, man. I wish I was kind of out there with you. Is it warm enough?
In the sun, it is warm.
Oh, yes.
Joseph and Grant are behind the scenes and they're in the shade, so they might be a little chilly. But us here on camera, we're warming up.
Yeah, that's good. That's all you can ask for, honestly. It's up here in Cincinnati. It's still sub 30 degrees, and hopefully it'll be warmer this week when I go down to the Senior Bowl in Mobile, but we'll see where that goes.
Oh, yeah, definitely got to be warmer in Mobile, no doubt about it. But we've got some good playoff matchups to talk about. We want to touch on, obviously, everything going on with the National Football League. So let's jump in with the premier match of the week. I know you want to talk about, obviously, the youngster and Jayden Daniels and Jalen Hurts, but I want to start with the Bills and the Chiefs. And obviously, we've never seen Josh Allen conquer Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. In your estimation, what is it going to take for Josh Allen to finally get over that hump and to take down Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs?
I think at this point, the way we've seen him play all year, he's just got to be himself. I mean, he's running for us the best turnover-worthy play rate of his career. So he's, the ball security was always the question for Allen in big spots, and that's really, those concerns have gone away. So I think he just has to continue doing what he's doing. The big thing I'm looking for is just some sort of improvement from the Bills' defense, right? It seems like each time that they've played the Chiefs in the playoffs, they've struggled on defense. They've struggled to make stops in big spots, and especially the last two games, it's really hard to blame Allen for the fact that the Bills lost. So I really don't know that this game comes down so much to some variance in Allen's performance, so much as the rest of the team picking up the slack, as they did last week, forcing a few turnovers and making plays when they really needed to against Baltimore. I think the Bills' defense is really the X factor here.
So talk a little bit about, I know Josh Allen is going to obviously be very mobile with this, as we have some music in the background.
Yep.
Talk to me a little bit about, somebody who's going to be an X factor in terms of catching the ball, because Josh Allen can't win this game if he has a repeat of last week with the passing performance.
Yeah, no, I think what you have with the Bills and what you've had all year is it isn't necessarily one specific guy. It's somebody different every week. Now, they ran the ball plenty last week, but some weeks it's Khalil Shakir. Some weeks it's, maybe we'll finally see the emergence of Amari Cooper. Some weeks it's the guys out of the backfield like James Cook and Ty Johnson. So I think part of it depends on what looks that they're going to get on defense, right? They've kind of got a different set of plays for guys when it's zone coverage, man coverage. And I think that's kind of the beauty of the Bills offense this year, whereas in the past it was very much reliant on a guy like Stephon Diggs, and it always hurts to lose a guy like that, but they give you a different look every week, right? And I think every week it could be somebody different. I think the matchup people are going to be looking for is Khalil Shakir versus Trent McDuffie, but the Bills' success this year is it hasn't really ridden one guy outside of Josh Allen, so I think it's really going to depend on the plan that Steve Spagnuolo has and how they adjust off of it.
Yeah, it's kind of what I was wondering too, is like what Spags got up his sleeve this week. I mean, you've seen him, they got him this early on this year, but that was in Buffalo, and it's kind of one of those feelings again where you don't want to bet on against the Chiefs because you did it last year at some point. You're like, why did I even think about that? But now with Spags, like, what is he going to have to do? Because Josh has just been so versatile, like passing it around, and like Coop's not been fine, right? Like he's been a fine wide receiver, nothing special. Like what are the Chiefs going to do defensively? Because I mean, I feel like they've kind of not regressed much, but offensively they're not scoring 30 points. I mean, do you feel like this is going to be a pretty low scoring game in that aspect?
It'll probably be somewhere in the mid, possibly the high 20s. I mean, the Chiefs have found a way to slow games down, and they played at an extremely slow pace, and that's kind of how they've won this year with ball control and time of possession, and not a lot of explosive plays, but they just find any means that they can to get first downs. I think what Spagnuolo could do is what he did last year in the playoffs, went with a lot of cover two, a lot of two high safeties, and a lot of soft shells, forcing Allen to throw it short, right? Be more conservative. And when you play zone coverages, he can't take off and run as much because everybody's eyes are on him, right? So I don't think he's going to approach it the same way he did last week against Houston, where it was very aggressive, a whole lot of blitzing, a whole lot of man coverage, unless he feels like he has that big of an advantage on the outside. But Allen's legs make the difference. It's hard to play man-to-man when you're talking about facing Josh Allen because he'll just take off and run for 100 yards on you. So I think we could see something similar to last year. It was a conservative approach. Everything about the Chiefs is more conservative this year, and they just want to keep themselves in the game and win in those late game situations with Mahomes like they have all year.
Yeah, because it does feel like even with Kelsey, because he's on the backside of his prime-ish era, but he's still putting up 117 yards last week. So you have these guys that just tear up a zone for them, but there's neither side. It doesn't feel like either one of them have this man buster. They don't have the stud wide receiver anymore, it feels like, right?
No, they really don't. And both sides, what they've done to compensate for it is Joe Brady on one side and then, of course, Andy Reid on the Chiefs side. They've done just a great job scheming and using the depth that they have, even if they don't have that number one guy, right? When you talk about throwing the backs out of the backfield, especially for the Bills, we've seen especially a guy like Ty Johnson, who Josh Allen calls the best third down back in the league. He's a matchup problem. Or the tight ends, like you mentioned, on both sides can be matchup problems. You've got Travis Kelce on one side, Dalton Kincaid on the other, Dawson Knox, Noah Gray. You got tight ends like crazy on both these teams. And then again, the play calling when it comes to all the motions and all the game, these are two of the best game planners offensively in the league right now. When you talk about Andy Reid's one of the best of all time, and Joe Brady, there's a reason he's getting head coaching looks because week to week he can bring something different. You kind of think, okay, we can beat the Bills, we can make him throw. We got to make him punch and beat us left-handed. And then it doesn't work because they have some other answer because they have just this depth of guys that all have a solid amount of talent. So I think it's going to be fascinating to see the game plans on both sides of the ball here.
You talk about the game plan overall, and you just mentioned the guy that is a game plan destroyer, Travis Kelce. Let's just say this guy, who I would be remiss to not mention Taylor Swift, for our female audience. I'm going to do it. I'm a Swiftie. I don't care. If Travis and Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs three-peat and they go on to win this game, is there any chance, us being in our industry and podcasting, does Trav walk away from the game on top? Do you think that there's a possible retirement imminent for him?
I do think it's possible either way, right? And I don't want to speculate too much because he's kind of ignored that conversation all season. And of course, he's going to get to the playoffs and look like he's 26 years old again because that's what he does every year. But and it speaks to just kind of how this Chiefs team operates, right? Where they show up when it matters. And Travis just decided to wait out the whole regular season this year. But no, I think it's entirely possible. Obviously, we know everything he's got going on off the field with Taylor and the podcasting with Jason and everything that he's one of the biggest biggest stars on the planet right now, right? But I think it's still just going to be a matter of, okay, you do wonder if they do get a third in a row, does he sit there and like he did this year go, maybe a fourth? Do we have a fourth in us? So there's always that factor. Winning always feels it's the best thing ever to win championships, and that's always a factor that'll play in his head. But I think it's entirely possible.
All right, I want to talk a little bit more about that Buffalo defense. You mentioned that's going to be kind of more the X factor in your mind for Buffalo to have success than even Josh Allen himself having a fantastic game. Safety Taylor Rapp's not going to play in this game with the back injury from last week. Who steps up for him, and who are some other guys that you're looking at within this defense that really need to have a good day against Kansas City? Because if it weren't for the Lamar Jackson fumble, the forced fumble on Mark Andrews, obviously the drop by Mark Andrews, the Bills really couldn't stop the Ravens and Lamar Jackson all that well last week. So what needs to change this week for their defense specifically? Who needs to step up?
Look, I think they've been a defense all year that they bend and they don't break. They hold you to field goals in the red zone, and they force turnovers when possible. I believe they lead the league in takeaways this year, and I believe they lead the league in turnover margin because Allen's not turning the ball over on the offensive side. I think there's three levels to it, and I'll start. You mentioned the Taylor Rapp injury. The two safeties that are going to start in this game on the back end, Damar Hamlin, who started all year, and the rookie out of Utah, Cole Bishop, they're going to be the main components here in trying to cover Travis Kelce over the middle of the field. It's something the Texans had a problem with. They had advantages on the outside with their corners, but over the middle was a problem for them. So those two guys are going to really need to step up. And you already know in the playoffs, all eyes need to be on number 87 at all times. I do think at linebacker, Matt Milano, who's gotten healthy late in the season, is going to play a part in that as well as stopping the run. And then I think the biggest advantage the Bills have, right? People have talked about the Chiefs and their offensive tackle struggles all year. They moved their left guard, Joe Thuney, out to left tackle, and it's good enough, but it's also pass protection hasn't been elite this year. Greg Rousseau and Von Miller off the edge. If the Bills are going to win, very much like Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter were last week for Houston, Miller and Rousseau, they have to be the two best players on the field in this game, and they have to find a way not only to pressure Patrick Mahomes, because we know he's great under pressure, but you have to get him down 3, 4, 5 times at least, right? And I think in past games when the Bills have played the Chiefs, that has been a problem is they can get to him, but they can't quite finish him off. So I'm looking at Greg Rousseau and Von Miller off the edges. They really need to take advantage of the one true advantageous matchup for them on that side of the ball.
And those guys that you just mentioned are really going to have their hands full when it comes to this offensive, I'd say just by a collective, right? A coalition, if you will, in Kansas City. Obviously, Travis, we just talked about. Xavier Worthy, I think is going to have a chip on his shoulder from this, essentially them trading the pick to draft him in the first round. But is there another guy on this Kansas City offense that you think is going to be a sneaky type of problem for Buffalo in that defense?
I actually, you know what? A lot of the fun of watching their offense is that it's not Travis Kelce's not the only tight end there, and I really think Noah Gray has had a good season. And when you have both of them on the field, Noah Gray's proven he's a legitimate receiving threat. You got to keep track of both of these guys, right? Because even if you triple cover Travis Kelce, Gray's, Andy Reid, he does a great job finding space for him in coverages, especially I thought earlier in the year, even when Travis maybe wasn't at full speed yet and maybe wasn't putting up 120 yards like he did last week. I think he did a great job using Kelce as a decoy, right? And I think Noah Gray was a big benefactor in that with all the space that's created in other areas of the field. So I'm looking at, it was a similar concern that the Bills had playing the Ravens last week with so many sets with multiple tight ends on the field. I think when Kelce and Gray are both on the field at the same time, the Bills are really going to have a hard time matching up because they don't usually go to bigger personnel, and those two guys are really hard to cover.
Yeah, they are going to be really difficult to cover. It's going to be a fun watch for sure. All right, before we move on to the next matchup, got to get your official prediction. What do you got for this game, Dalton?
This is so tough. I mean, because both teams, the Chiefs are so well-rounded, and even though they've struggled offensively all year, but it's in Arrowhead, right? But I'm something in my gut tells me Buffalo. I'll be honest with you, this is a 50-50 game.
Get him, Dalton.
I'm going with the Bills. The only thing I will say is I was not a fan at all of the field goal call at the end of last week. I know it put them up 8, but I was not a fan of that. I think if you're going against guys like this, Lamar, Allen, Mahomes, you have to go for the kill when you have that opportunity. The Bills did it in the first matchup between these two teams. They let Allen have that 4th down, and he ran in the touchdown. If they get in a similar spot here, they need to finish Mahomes off, or we already know what's going to happen in the last 2 minutes. But I'll take the Bills by a hair. It's as hard a game to pick as we've had all season.
Well, they're going to have to debunk some road playoff woes because they've lost 7 straight road playoff games. But I'm with you. I hope the Bills find a way to pull it out. I think this feels a little bit more like their year. Let's move over to Washington and Philadelphia. Obviously, it's an NFC East matchup. These two teams have already played twice before. Jayden Daniels, I got to start with him. Just the incredible nature of his play, his cool, calm, collected nature that he plays with. He's been outstanding on the road and in the fourth quarter of different games and whatnot. So give me a little rundown about what makes him so good and how far he is ahead of schedule, even as a rookie, in your opinion.
He's extremely far ahead of schedule, and I think in part because he had 5 years as a starter in college, right? I mean, he played a ton of college games. I believe it was well over 50 games, and I think the thing that's always impressed me with Daniels is we know he's an elite athlete, right? He's on that Lamar Jackson level of athlete, but he wants to throw from the pocket. He wants to have as many answers from the pocket as possible in all scenarios. And then when he decides to flip the switch and be the runner that he can be, he gets north and south, and he's very decisive with it. So everything he does is in a decisive manner. Usually you see rookies get into league and they get different defensive looks and the speed of the game and all this, and nothing is ever past like week 1 against the Bucs, and Todd Bowles is notorious for rookies, going against him. After that game, it's just never looked fast for him. It's never looked all that fast. It's never looked too fast. The moment's never been too big. And I think that's part of it. He knows, even though he's the best athlete on the field, he wants to be a passer first, especially from the pocket. So I think when you have a guy like that on top of the athleticism, there's really no limits to what you can do in your offense. And it's allowed Cliff Kingsbury to just use every dimension possible that he can come up with, despite still having a relatively thin team, right? It's not a great offensive line. You have one legit receiver in Terry McLaurin, but they kind of patch it together after that. I just think Jayden's abilities in both and his willingness to be a passer first has been the biggest key to their success.
How's he grading out? Is he actually going to wind up being probably the best rookie quarterback we've ever had? Is he close?
It's extremely close with, I believe, with Russell Wilson in 2012. They're like a sliver apart. Wilson might have like a decimal point on him, but by the end of this game, Jayden could pass him. That's how it's. I think it's like one of them's like 90.6 and the other's 90.5. So it'll come down to this game. It'll come down to this game and possibly one more, but it's between him and Russell Wilson in 2012.
That's crazy. I was kind of wondering, like, because I know everybody was talking about this. Feels like Jayden's going to wind up being the best ever. If he wins this game, it kind of cements it. But what's been the biggest worry for him against Philadelphia so far this year? And do you think they kind of do something different? Do you feel like they're playing a little bit better? Because I know last time he had a little bit of injury bug going on and was taking his little dip in his rookie year, but now he's on a different level.
No, when you have a quarterback playing like this, you're always dangerous. And I don't think there's so much a matchup part of this that's the problem with Jayden as I do. It's just the rest of the team, right? The Eagles, they've had the best secondary in football all year, especially since Cooper DeJean entered the starting lineup. And I think Washington, the biggest problem I have with them, especially with their best offensive lineman now, Sam Cosmi, being done for the rest of the season, is pass protection. Now, in the first 2 games, they've held up well, and those were against 2 blitz-heavy teams in the Bucs and the Lions. We know the Eagles are sending 4 because they're so good in coverage, and they still have guys up front. You talk about Josh Sweat and Jalen Carter, and those guys up front can get after it with just 4. That would be the biggest problem for me, more so than Jayden Daniels underperforming or caving as a rookie or anything like that. I would just be worried about the rest of the supporting cast, especially the offensive line without Cosmi. I'll tell you what, I at this point, I don't know how you block Jalen Carter without it being too it. There's nobody
pretty good.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, very, very, very few guys in the league even have a chance of blocking him one-on-one, and that's exactly what made the difference against the Rams last week. So I would worry more about those guys, especially up front against the Eagles in this matchup, than anything about Jayden's demeanor or anything like that.
You just mentioned Jalen Carter, and I want to go back to that same draft class. Jahmyr Gibbs last week seemed like he got 10 yards a carry every time he touched the football, meaning, the Commanders could not stop a nosebleed. And this guy, I don't know, his name's Saquon Barkley, and he's not too bad. Are they going to be able to do it tomorrow? Are they going to be able to stop Saquon or contain him or even put up a better effort stopping the run? Of course, you have the Jalen Hurts aspect as well. I mean, what is that going to look like, you think, Dalton?
If it looks the same as the first two games where these two teams played, I think Philadelphia is going to win because Barkley racked up almost 350 total yards against them across those first two games. So, if he's going to get $175 or close to 200 between rushing and receiving, the Eagles, that's how they've been winning all year. They've been playing great defense. They've been riding Saquon Barkley. And this is really the biggest question in the game, right? Can they at least contain him to something reasonable? You don't have to shut him down. He's not going to only have 30 yards rushing on the day, but what if you only give up 100 or 110 to Saquon? Then you make Jalen Hurts beat you on the outside. Look, if you make Jalen Hurts beat you and he makes big throws to Brown and Smith and Goddard and whoever else, then you kind of live with it because Hurts has played relatively average football as a passer this year. You got to make them beat you left-handed, right? And I think, again, that requires Saquon having just a decent day instead of a great day like he's been having, but he's still raging hot. That's the first priority is Bobby Wagner and those guys up front for the Commanders, finding any way they can to just not let him pop off those 60-yard touchdown runs.
I want to stay on the offensive side of the ball. There's a guy that he's on the back of a milk carton for some reason. I saw him here in Chattanooga recently. A.J. Brown. Haven't seen him lately, and I was wondering, do you have the whereabouts of Mr. A.J. Brown? Is there
APB?
Is there an APB out for him? Have you located him?
I assume he's somewhere in the city of Philadelphia, but it's an awfully big place with a lot of people. So, somewhere, as even today, he's probably out somewhere at a coffee shop reading a book or something, right? Reading a new bestseller. But no, I mean, you would like to, in these big spots, get him the ball more because he's one of the best receivers in football, right? And you would think, again, against this Commanders secondary, that they would have the advantage. Last week, obviously, playing in the snow, you're winning running the ball. You're not going to go to him a whole lot, but there's going to be times, especially if he's matched up with Marshawn Lattimore, that's going to be the fun one. Is he going to get enough shots, right? The Eagles, I don't expect Hurts to come out and throw for 350 yards, but those moments where Brown gets his one-on-one opportunities, I think this year he's been the best single coverage receiver in football. So you still want to use that as a weapon, and then it lightens the box for Saquon. I'm with you. I would think he's one of the best players on your team, and you want to get him the football, at least 10 or 12 opportunities to do so. But if they're going to keep winning, running the ball the way they've been running it, then, they're feeling content and not take the chance. I think you're going to need to see Brown at least make 4 or 5 plays in this game, especially if you get a high scoring game.
Yeah, he's got it. Like you were talking about earlier when it comes to Saquon Barkley and running the football and, trying to contain him. I want to circle back to Saquon because I saw an interesting stat here when it comes to the Commanders that no team in the league invites more opponents to rush more than the Commanders, who play nickel on 95% of their time against 12 and 21 personnel. Look, to me, that's that. Do you think they're going to have to completely change up their game plan on a defensive front, or are they going to kind of stick with what they do and just hope that Saquon doesn't kill him because he killed them at a couple of times. It's been what he's been doing all year long in terms of those big home run shots and those big runs that have really killed the Commanders. So what do you think their game plan is tomorrow in terms of defense? Do they stick with that nickel or do they maybe change it up a little bit?
So I have my doubts about them fully changing the personnel and maybe putting an extra defensive lineman on the field because it's not a very deep defensive line anyway. I think they're going to continue to do what they've done all year is kind of shift it, and Dan Quinn likes some of those kind of multi-positional players. So I think what you see more often is a lot of Jeremy Chin at safety down in the box and trying to help out a lot. And I'm curious to see, instead of going with an extra defensive lineman, what they usually do is sometimes they'll put Frankie Louvu off the edge. He actually used to be a full-time edge defender in college and with the Jets, and then it wasn't until Carolina when he went there that he moved to linebacker, but still a versatile piece that can do either or, and I think that's the look you would see. The problem is that's still a relatively small front, even with Louvu up there, and you're trusting, Bobby Wagner is one of the greatest, to ever play the game at linebacker, but you're trusting him with a lot, even if he gets one-on-one with Saquon Barkley, right? So I think you'll just see kind of some shifting as opposed to wholesale personnel changes.
Yeah, and shifting around too, because I know Terry's kind of struggled at times against this team. What do you think's there for him to kind of take advantage of the Eagles this time around compared to the last couple?
I think what you have to do against Philadelphia, and we've seen a lot of the Terry McLaurin highlights. We saw one early against the Bucs where he gets that press man coverage, he gets that one-on-one matchup he wants, and Jayden's going to take the deep shot to him, right? We can remember a throw against the Bucs, one against the Bengals that won that game, but the Eagles they're a very soft coverage, zone-heavy team. That's Vic Fangio's identity, and they're extremely sound in it. So I think what you want to do for McLaurin and all the guys in this game, De'Ami Brown and even the backs, maybe Austin Eckler helps, is I think if you want to bother this Philadelphia secondary, you got to emphasize yards after catch. I think the Commanders are a very good screen team. They create it in that sense. I think a lot of shorter passes, and Jayden's content to go with the quick game, and you have to make them make tackles in open space because they're the best team in football at preventing those deep shots. I think you find ways to get McLaurin the ball closer to the line of scrimmage, and you saw what he could do last week on the screen against the Lions. I mean, he just absolutely took off on a smoke screen that went for a 50, 60-yard touchdown. So he's got the speed. He's got speed for days, and he's dangerous after the catch. I think you could create more looks for like that early in the game because when the Eagles secondary has been bothered, it's been because of a high amount of yards after catch that teams are creating.
Interesting. All right, Dalton, last one on this game. Obviously, before we get into a little bit of the new coaching hires, if you have time for that, give us your prediction on this one. Do you think the Philly defense is going to be too much for Jayden Daniels, slow him down and the rest of that offense, or do you think they find a way to pull it out in Philly?
I think this is one more game where Philadelphia can stick to their guns. And I know some people are going to say, well, Jalen Hurts has to be significantly better to win and this and that. I think this week he's got to be a little bit better, but I don't think it's to a point where we need to see him, have his best game of the season. I think they can ride their defense, and especially Saquon Barkley, right? And for as much as I love Jayden, I'm as big a fan of Jayden Daniels as anybody in our building, but this one feels like a little too tall of a task. And I don't even think he's going to come out. I think he's going to come out and play well. He's not going to play poorly in this game, but you're going to see this. I think this will be the game where you look at Washington and go, okay, they just are a little bit short on other areas of their team. I'll take the Eagles in this one.
All right, I want to jump over to the coaching hires at the head coaching spots in the NFL real quick. There's obviously been a lot of different shakeups when it comes to the head coaching hires. In your opinion, who has the opportunity to make the biggest impact, or who are you most excited about that got a new job this offseason so far?
I'll tell you, I know there's been a lot of controversy on how it went down and the GM situation and everything surrounding it, but just in an on-field sense, I really do like the fit of Liam Cohen going to Jacksonville and getting to work with Trevor Lawrence. I love the job that he's done really at all sorts of spots. He's obviously helped Sean McVay with the Rams down in Kentucky when he was coaching college ball. Great play calling down there. He really turned Will Levis into a big-time prospect, even though that didn't work out with Tennessee. And then he just did a fantastic job this year with the
Thanks,
Bucs.
Didn't need to hear that one.
Yeah. Sometimes I forget. I'm like, oh yeah, I can't say nice things about the rivals. I always forget about that part.
I can't do that. Sorry.
And the Will Levis part with the Titans, but you'll get a new one this year. It'll be okay. We'll see which one it is, but you'll get another one. But no, I think it's a good fit. I really do. I think with the way Cohen ran this offense and how much emotion and all the different looks that he created for all his weapons, I think they can do similar things in Jacksonville, right? They got to improve the offensive line, but this is an offense that I think it was designed to make Baker Mayfield's life easier, and I think it's going to be designed to make Trevor Lawrence's life easier. And I really like the idea of making a hire, no matter how they got there eventually, that makes Trevor Lawrence the number one priority. You have to protect him. You have to not just, send him out there to just take deep shots all night. Give him some easier throws, make this offense easier to run. I like Cohen in Jacksonville for that reason.
Yeah, the story is like, it doesn't make a lot of sense sometimes because you're hearing like both sides of the ball here. You're like, well, he made a text, he didn't, so I was like, oh, great. But for Cohen, like, how do you feel like with the money being spent? I know that Benny Boy up in Chicago set the new standard. Do you feel like these guys are just going to keep getting paid in their first years?
Oh, absolutely. If you're a hot candidate like that, I don't blame them one bit for going and getting the money. There's no salary cap on coaches. That's just as much as the owner wants to spend. So, in that sense, you're just going to outbid everybody else. If it comes down to a bidding war, just spend the most money. Obviously fit matters, and these coaches, it feels like more than ever, especially in Ben Johnson's case, like you mentioned, these coaches are looking for the right fit. Now, a few extra $1 million obviously helps, but look, if first-time coaches are going to get a bunch of money, then you're just going to keep seeing it rise up unless they put some sort of salary cap on coaches too. But I highly doubt that's going to happen.
Talking a little bit about coaches, I want to talk about a coordinator that was just let go recently, who was, in fact, in the driver's seat for multiple roles last year, Bobby Slowick. That was a shock to me. Thoughts? It felt really weird to me.
I'm in between on this because, some of the people who have even further broken down a lot of the Texans play calling and stuff than I have will say, well, he didn't make a ton of adjustments throughout the year. And and it could have been so much better. And you have CJ Stroud, and I'm in between because I sit here and I go, their offensive line was really bad this year. It's hard for anyone to call plays, especially with the interior protection when you have a pocket quarterback like that. It's hard to call plays, and they really didn't run block very well either. Joe Mixon had to create a lot for himself. And then I sit here and I go, well, two of his top 3 wide receivers were injured for a good chunk of the season, right? So we're out here with not a very good offensive line. Obviously, a primetime quarterback. CJ Stroud's awesome, but only one legitimate receiver. And then you're trying to go and beat teams like Kansas City, who have Chris Jones, who you have no answer for, and you only have Nico Collins, who can get doubled all night. I think – I don't know. Maybe there's something internally going on there, and maybe if I dig back through all 18, 19 games again, maybe I won't love Slowick's play calling as much, but it felt like it was just as much a player issue with the injuries and some of the ineffectiveness up front as it was with Slowick. But maybe there's just some disagreements in the building, and they felt the need to cut ties.
All right, before I kick it over to my man Chase, because I'd be remiss if he didn't ask you about what's going to happen with the number 1 overall pick for his Tennessee Titans, I am curious to know, out of all of these coaching hires, who is your least favorite, or who is the one that has you scratching your head the most?
Well, I mean, I'll say 2 things, because one, the Saints job, I'm not sure who's going to take that, and that seems like by far the least attractive hire with their salary cap situation, the roster situation, all of that. I don't know what's going to happen there, and I don't know that there can be a good outcome, but I'm really confused by this Brian Schottenheimer situation in Dallas, and I think a lot of people are. I think what it speaks to me more so, I think people haven't talked about enough that Mike McCarthy may not have just wanted to be there anymore. And obviously that can be an organizational structure thing with Jerry Jones. It could be, I got all the blame for a whole bunch of injuries we had, and we still had a decent team. There could be a lot of different factors, but I think that's getting underrated in all of this, is that he didn't get fired, and he didn't even necessarily quit. The contract just expired, and he was content to let it expire and explore his options. And even now, with Dallas as an option, he still refused. He still declined it. So
we were going pretty strong there.
We were.
I mean, cooking in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Cooking.
Are we good? You got me or no?
Dalton?
All right, we'll see if we can get him.
We'll bring him back. We'll bring you back.
I
Dalton.
think he's back.
He is back.
All right, good.
Are we good? Are we good now? You got me?
Oh yeah, we're
good.
back.
You're good.
Okay, no. That's all it really is to me. I think it's an element of that Dallas search where you go, boy, Mike McCarthy really didn't want to be there, and I'm not sure that Jerry Jones necessarily wanted to fire him, but when the contract runs out, it runs out. So it's an odd situation there. But keeping Schottenheimer, I don't know, it feels a little bit like kind of keeping the same thing around. Maybe they feel like a new, fresh voice with the same talent can get the job done. But it's a confusing situation down there in Dallas, to put it nicely.
All right. I don't know how I feel about
deep
this.
breath.
Yeah.
I mean, a sigh for the
It's
ages.
like one of those things that I feel like there's a lot of high ceiling, low floor guys. I don't know how you feel about Shador and Cam. Maybe you can tell me wrong. But new GM, did you like the Titans hire? I feel like he's one of those guys that everybody kind of wanted eventually.
Yeah, especially when you're taking a guy from a team like Kansas City. I mean, I know it hasn't quite worked for Ryan Poles in Chicago yet, but I think Borgonzi was high on a lot of teams' lists, and I think that's a good get for them for sure.
Yeah, same. I mean, everybody like in the Nashville radio area was like, if you were going to find a guy, he's probably it. He's probably it, especially not somebody that's not already a GM. It's kind of the best find I can go with. So I was pleased with that part. I did believe in Rand at some point. You give me all the fun stats like, well, he drafted this 5th rounder. And I'm like, sign me up, baby. I'm in, But didn't work out. Don't think he was ready. The Vrabel thing will go down in history as a very strange, head-scratching loss. But number 1 pick, who do you think it should be, and who do you think they're going to get, if it's the same guy or not?
So I think it should be a quarterback. And I know this week there's been the talk about generational talents and Travis Hunter and maybe Abdul Carter. If they feel that way, they don't necessarily need a Mason Graham, but if they feel like he's the best player, I think it should be a quarterback. I think, look, this Titans team, we all know what the problem was this year, right? And even in our metrics, they were last in the league in passing grade. You can't be last in the league in passing grade and have success. You can't have one of the worst quarterback situations in the league and have success. I could see it either way. I think these two guys, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, are very close. I think it comes down to your preference. They're a little bit different as far as their style. Me personally, I would take Shedeur, I'm a big fan of Shedeur Sanders. I think he's accurate. He reads defenses very well. He wants to throw the ball on time. There was some situations there at Colorado. They were incapable of running the ball, and he wasn't really able all the time to sit in the pocket and do the things that he wanted to. But I would take Shedeur. I completely understand if someone prefers Cam Ward. I think they're very close as far as talent level. But for me, it would absolutely be one of the two quarterbacks, number one overall.
I want to talk about, first off, how amazing of an explanation that was, because Shedeur Sanders is, in fact, you can't mess this up. Pick the guy first overall, get a face of the franchise.
But does he want to go there?
I think I don't have any reports. I'm not an exclusive with Adam Schefter, but I just read something that said that he made a great first impression on the Titans organization.
Okay.
So he comes from, obviously, an NFL background with his father, knows a business. I think he's going to be an amazing fit. I want to talk about one last fit, meaning we have one head coach opening left. Does the former Bayou play caller at LSU, Joe Brady, is he filling that spot down there in putrid New Orleans?
This is coming from an Atlanta
I'm a
Falcons
fan, man. Putrid New Orleans with Joe Brady taking that head coaching spot.
I don't know that he'll take it because, again, we've seen more of these coordinators being more and more selective with the situations that they're walking into, and I think that's what the big problem is right now. I think, one, for the Saints with their roster situation, two, with the salary cap situation, and three, there were rumors that Aaron Glenn didn't take that job. In the same reason, that Ben Johnson didn't take the Jacksonville job because of Trent Baalke. There is some lingering doubts about Mickey Loomis's ability to run that team as the general manager too, and that may have played a factor in Glenn picking the Jets over the Saints. So there's a lot of obstacles right now working against that franchise, and a lot of them are kind of self-inflicted. I think that's what they're waiting for. They're waiting for the Bills' playoff run to be over and to get to interview Joe Brady. He was there for a short time under Sean Payton. If they don't get him, I really don't know what the answer is at that point. If they bring back Darren Rizzi or a Mike McCarthy, but even that all feels like lame duck kind of situation, right? It feels like Joe Brady could be a long-term answer, but it could be a while before we see this hashed out because they're waiting for this Bills playoff run to be over. I don't have a real logical explanation right now for how to fix the Saints other than they kind of need to tank it out and get a number one pick and really reset it, but they're just not willing to do that. Absolutely.
Well, they need to. And that's just from a disgruntled Falcons fan. Thank you, Dalton.
Could that be a new song?
What?
The tank it out.
Take it out. Take it out.
It's a new jam for the NFL. Dalton, we appreciate the time. Find him up on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at PFF_Dalton. And he is obviously a PFF analyst and contributor. He also is the co-host of the PFF College Football Show with our boy Max Chadwick. And I just have to say this, Dalton. I said this to Max yesterday when I was DMing with him, but I want to give you your flowers because all season long when I've needed to kind of go and brush up on my college football in specific matchups, I always watch the previews that you guys do. You guys do a fantastic job there at Pro Football Focus, and we appreciate you guys doing that and all the hard work that you put in all football season long. Thank you so much for doing that, and thank you so much for being here.
Appreciate you guys big time for having me, having Max on, having anybody from our side that you can have on, and just keep spreading the word for us. We're trying to build that college channel up. We're trying to be the best in the business, so I appreciate it big time.
Yeah, you guys are doing it, man. You guys are really doing it.
Thank you, Dalton. Appreciate it, man. Have a great weekend.
3 claps one time, baby.
You too.
There he goes. Dalton Wasserman here on Chat It Up Sports. We are going to have some other guests jumping on with us here in a moment. If you guys want to just at least take him off stage. Yeah, we'll get that figured out there in a second. All right, there we go. Yeah, we've got a CFC guest coming up. Matt, do you know how to say his last name? I'm going to butcher it probably. Caniglio. That's much better than what I mean.
That's a
you got that.
Connecticut.
Sure.
Solid.
Yeah, absolutely.
Section 109 podcast. That'll be great. Give us a lot more insight. Hey, we're learning here, boys. We are learning about the CFC. We're going to figure this all out. Yeah, we got some warm-ups about to go on. This is gonna
what a scene behind us. Dude. What a scene.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Love Feels awesome out here, by the way, too.
It's great. All right, well, we got a couple of minutes. We got about 10 minutes before Matt jumps on with us. I want to ask you boys a question when it comes to the National Football League. Okay?
Absolutely.
What would it mean for each of these teams to win this weekend and advance to the Super Bowl? What would be the biggest storyline for each team if they won?
Okay. I'll start with Buffalo.
Okay. Give me Buffalo. Break it down.
If Josh Allen does, in fact, beat Patrick Mahomes and stops this. I think he now gets out of the tier like there's Mahomes is at the top alone.
Yeah.
And then you have a three-way tie with Joe Burrow, Lamar, and Josh Allen.
Yeah.
He breaks that kind of three-way tie.
But he wouldn't still be on that Mahomes level.
Yeah, he creates another tier.
He's another tier by himself.
Yeah,
well, I think Joe Burrow is actually there because he's beaten Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs.
Yeah, but
to get to the Super Bowl.
He hasn't been back. Like he's missing.
It doesn't matter,
the playoffs.
but Josh has never even been there.
Yeah, but
so Joe's got to be right under Patrick, and then there's that tier where it's Josh
does
and
feel
Lamar.
like it's those two. This sucks because it kind of pushes out Lamar. That's all. That's what it feels like it does.
I don't think it can because of the MVPs.
I know.
It
but
can't.
It's about rings.
No, but like then that's the case. Like Joe doesn't have one. I know he's been.
But Lamar's never even sniffed it.
Yeah,
but he
Josh
has.
hasn't sniffed it either.
Yeah, it's like I don't know.
Josh has sniffed it, but he just didn't have enough time.
Like he got a whiff.
Yeah, he was there.
See, Lamar hasn't even gotten that spot.
But
I know the MVPs and all that good stuff.
I
but
think
it's
Lamar's regression in the playoffs really hurts it.
It does
because it's a sizable dip, especially in the second and third round, like second rounds. Like it's pretty significant where Josh elevates himself to different stratospheres. I think that's the only thing is Burrow's put up the stats and he's been there to a Super Bowl. And now it's almost like wins don't even matter because we saw Joe Burrow put in maybe the second, maybe the best overall season of the year.
He's not no Sam Bradford. I don't know who said that. Freaking idiot.
Fool.
Idiot.
Some fool in the middle.
Dumbass.
So that is my my take for Buffalo. I'll let you guys have the others.
Man, I hate to say it, I think Philly kind of needs it the most. Of all these teams, there's the Josh Allen thing, but it's like, well, he just can't beat Patrick. Okay. We couldn't beat Jordan. Happens.
Yeah, I couldn't beat Jordan.
Now, Philly's kind of in that spot of like, well, they got a better road, or they got this, or they got that, and they're boring, and they're not running. Like it kind of sucks because Hurts probably outplayed Patrick in that Super Bowl, but you didn't get the dub. And so for Philly, they just need to get back because that fan base sucks, dude.
They're awful,
dude. And just
I
like
don't know if they suck, they're just very passionate.
Just
they suck against opposing.
Yeah,
they're just cold blooded. They hate each other. Like you can tell, like it's just the way that city is built. Like it is. Yeah, they're passionate. They love their team and they'll fight. They're like brothers up there. The city of brotherly love is like, hey, we're just gonna fight each other all the time. But if you mess with our team, we're coming at you, dude.
Yeah, we'll all band together, but we're gonna, kick and scream and argue with each other about whose fault it is why we're not winning championships.
Yeah, Jalen really needs it. Jalen needs some love right now because I do think right now he just gets looked at pretty side-eyed compared to all these other quarterbacks in here. Especially with Jayden Daniels doing what he's doing right now. So
when we talk about, I'll take the Chiefs real quick in terms of storyline and their legacy and things like that. If they end up winning this game and going back to the Super Bowl, like I know, like it's what is it, 7 straight years in which Patrick Mahomes has been to an AFC Championship game?
Yep.
Yeah.
7 straight.
Insane. So he's been a starter. He's been in the AFC Championship game every single year.
Every single year.
I'm tired of it, honestly, but that's going to be the narrative of like, all right, now we're really like, Patrick Mahomes is great, but now we're going to start to get to, hey, he's approaching Tom Brady levels in terms of great. Like that's where he's getting himself to.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's pretty incredible. So that's going to be the continued elevation, how the defense, because it's really going to be the defense containing Josh Allen, I would assume, getting pressure on him, things like that, and just beginning to put his legacy in another stratosphere when it comes to Tom Brady. You talked about tiers. You got Tom at the top. I'd say you probably got Montana somewhere in there, with all of his Super Bowls. And then Patrick Mahomes is like, right, what has he got, 3 or 4?
Pat has 3.
3, right? Yeah. So this could be 4. And now we're starting to encroach on that territory where you're getting close to Tom Brady quick, fast, and in a hurry, because Tom won a lot of his championships later in his career.
Yeah, and I'm telling y'all, if Patrick Mahomes, knock on wood, I do not want anything bad to happen. I love the guy. If he had a career-ending injury, he's a Hall of Famer right now.
Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah, first ballot.
Yeah, so it's crazy.
Let's knock on wood, hopefully that don't happen.
Yeah, but he's going to have another decade to kind of add to his legacy, and that's unheard of.
Did you just low key light the fires and didn't like?
I mean, you just
Do it
You were
right in the
talking. I didn't want to do that.
you
yet.
could have easily cut me off to light a little fire.
Dang, we're an hour in. We're about an hour in. Yeah.
Let's
And-
bring Matt on over here.
Come on, Matty.
Scooty,
As long as he can hear himself and he's all good. Okay, the mic's off. Okay.
Okay, got you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just bring him on up to the table.
Come on, Matt. Bring
Scoot
yourself
you
on
here.
over here. We'll get Matt in here. We're gonna talk a little CFC.
Very special guest.
What's up, man? Good to meet you. I'm Greg.
My name's Matt.
Hey,
Miggy?
Matt. I'm Miggy. Nice to meet you.
Nice to
man.
meet you, Mickey.
Pleasure.
Matt, Chase, what's up, dude?
Chase,
Been
nice to
texting
meet
this
you.
week?
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah, I can hear.
He's
Yeah.
perfect. Welcome to Chat It Up, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Matt, Section 109 podcast, give a little rundown for the peeps what you guys are, because, I mean, as far as this goes, today's real game day.
Yeah. First game of the season is always fun, even if it's preseason. So I am with the Section 109 podcast. We kind of do game reports, occasionally some previews, long form interviews. We love having players on. If you think about how, and I don't know how, I'm not really a huge like podcast listener kind of person, but like a lot of podcasts have like their standard, 45 minutes. Like they try to keep things real trim. We do not do that.
We're on
Neither
that.
of us.
We're on that way too.
Like, is it going to
Numbers
be,
don't matter.
is it going to be a 50-minute podcast? Is it going to be a 3-hour podcast? You never like, we'll go where the wind takes us.
Do you guys go live or is it strict recording?
We do not do live, I guess, yet.
Okay.
It's mostly just record. Although, like we tried to be like more edited in kind of our early years, and now we're just one take. We don't give a damn.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to swear here?
Yeah,
Yeah, you
good.
are.
Far
You're
away,
good.
buddy.
You're
good.
Far away.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. He wanted that one, baby.
Yeah, I did.
Just get it out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like we'll do interviews with players, with staff, with front office people. We'll do, like I said, game reports. We'll talk about the news or whatever's going on in terms of CFC land.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of in-depth, kind of tactical stuff.
Yeah.
Real like nerd stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not really for everyone. If that makes sense. Sometimes we try to keep it high enough level, but sometimes like we're just two idiots that talk for way too long, or 3 or 4 idiots that talk for way too long about
Yeah,
stuff.
that's kind of
We're just a
your-
bunch of idiots
you're in
too,
your
talking a
company.
little too long.
Yeah, you're in the right
Okay,
spot.
excellent. I'm glad I found my people
You're
here.
in great company.
Yeah, we just talk multiple sports instead of just one.
Hell yeah, love it.
We just sound dumb on the other side. Now, sometimes we think we sound tactical. I don't know if
Sometimes
that's
we
always
try.
the case, but yeah.
I think if people really listen for too long, they just kind of get an idea like, oh, these guys are they're going down this rabbit hole. I don't want to follow them.
The niche market is real.
Yeah,
Niche market.
yeah. We have dozens of listeners.
What year did you guys start the podcast?
We started it back in 2019,
Okay.
which means that we're hitting what calendar year number 7 or
Seven.
something
6?
hideous.
Yeah.
But I think like any good podcast, like we don't do it for other people. We just do it for ourselves. Like if one person listens, great. And if hundreds of people listen, great. But also like it's for us. Podcasting is sort of like a therapy, which is real important just
It
in
really
general.
is.
So if you have strong feelings and emotions about sports, like I do, it's better to talk them out.
This is what this kind of is. Like, and if anything, we always talk about it's just kind of us getting together. We don't get to hang out outside of this much.
No.
Yeah, come up with got kids, we got families and jobs. And
Jobs.
Mickey's
So this is-
we're 3 hours away.
So this is like you time.
Oh,
Yeah.
this is
Boys
this is for
time.
the
Yeah,
boys.
it's the
I
boys.
love this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So this
No,
is, we get to do this kind of stuff.
We always talk about it. It's like, and Joseph and I always talk about it as well. And I know we've mentioned it, but like some days they're like, man, like shit, I'm really tired. I don't know if I got a show in me today. I don't know. We might just go like 30 minutes. Then you turn the mics on, you start going. It's like 2 hours later. It's like, oh shit, like, wow,
Quick.
we really just went 2 hours.
We just
Mike,
ran
Mike's
2
on,
hours.
beer's cracked. Let's go.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
That's all we need. That's
So
all you need
good.
sometimes.
Amazing.
Today, with the transfer over to like MLS Next, like, did you kind of envision this turning from like the cult following, kind of the small town feel, to now being basically in the second level of Major League Soccer?
Yeah, it's a weird. So like my first games were back in 2009, the beginning of the club.
Oh yeah.
So it's a really surreal thing to every now and then take a step back and look at where this thing started and where this thing has gone. but and it's not so much like the crowd sizes or whatever. Like, yeah, we've had big crowds really since the beginning. Like that's not the point. But it used to be a club that was like strictly volunteer run. Nobody got paid. And, the evolution to, okay, you have a couple people on staff, you have a full-time person now, to like, okay, let's take this thing pro. Let's pay players. Let's lose money, because that's frankly what pro sports are. But like, let's make this a year-round thing. Let's make this more ingrained in the community. Let's use our platform to reach more people through soccer. Has been fantastic to watch and be a part of.
Yeah, crazy transition. Because I was thinking about the 09 days, and then of course who did we play against in the biggest stadium record of all time?
New York Cosmos B.
Cosmos B, that's right. Yeah, so like looking back on that felt like this weird cult thing that just came about. Like the whole city of Chattanooga turned into this CFC cult, and it was one of the coolest feelings, because it did feel like everything was volunteer ran. It's like, we got a ticket guy, he can be here in 10 minutes. Like those kind of deals. And it was like, my buddy owns a food truck, he'll be here in 20. So you just kind of patched it all together.
It was so not professional in any way, shape, or form. But for about 2 hours on a random Saturday night, it looked very professional.
Unreal.
And like, I don't know, nothing like this has really ever happened except here in American soccer. And I don't think it really will again. Like, that was a special, weird time.
Yeah, because then not too long after was when the U.S. women came down, right?
It was literally the following week.
That was right. I was like really close. So wild to think about, like back in those times, like, because it was such an early time in Chattanooga and all the transition was going on, blah blah blah. But there was that feeling walking in every time, like this is like a special team. But you didn't quite understand it. It's like, hey, we're going to bring the soccer team to Finley Stadium. I don't know. I mean, the Mocs don't even get a big crowd back then in football. And then you just see this wave of blue, and soccer just has this special place in Chattanooga's heart.
People really forget, I think, if they weren't around every single week in those days, the crowds were, this is 3,500 every week for every game, right? It was only those big playoff runs where, because we were always like so good in the regular season, that we hosted all the playoff games. So you would get the regular crowds for 4, 5, 6 home games, whatever it was. We'd host every playoff game practically. So like it would just build and build and build. And for, every Saturday or whatever the cadence was in mid to late July, you just had to be there, because if you weren't there and they lost, and we always did eventually, Chattanooga sports fan, can't help it. If you weren't there at some point in time, like you had to wait 8, 9 months, 10 months. Like it was the thing to do if like drop all your plans on a July Saturday, you had to be there.
Well, that's what Chase was talking about. He used to live downtown. Like I'm a transplant. You are kind of a transplant as well from Atlanta.
For sure.
But he was talking about how he used to live downtown, and they used to that was the thing to do every, a couple times a week, right? Just come to Finley Stadium, go to CFC games
Saturdays,
all the time.
dude, you just pop in. Like,
yeah.
And it's right here. And then I did feel like the crowd, I guess just more like Chattanoogans back then, just gravitated in a different way, because it was kind of the only thing to do. There's so much going on now, like you can kind of pick up.
It kind of was the only thing to do. It really was, especially
breweries were popping up.
Yeah. So you had Chattanooga Brewing Company over here, which is now moved further down Chestnut Street into the West Village. But like before, Naked River was here, before the pavilion was here, but it was never being activated except for the market. And even before Southside Social opened, like there was just not much going on. Especially when you think about it, when the team started back in 2009, you had the recession, and like this was it. This was the only real new thing. I mean, the explosion of like bars and restaurants and things like that in Chattanooga didn't really start until like 2012, 2013, 2014.
Yeah, when I moved back in 13, 14, I was the first time I was like, we have bars here that it's not on the North Shore.
yeah, but seriously, like I remember the old Flying Squirrel, like that was the first one. And then it just all happened
back
after.
In the day, there was 2 spots. You went to Clyde's and then you walked to the Squirrel. That was it.
Yeah.
That was the only thing.
That's all
That's
we had.
crazy.
And now look.
Now look where we are.
I mean, like, we're low-key like a foodie town.
Oh no,
Yeah.
we look at me, man. You think I'm living in a town that's not a foodie town? Being here
Man likes to eat.
come on, man. I like to eat. Being here and listening to you, innovation has happened, right? And I think in the next 5 years, that's going to continue to happen. And your brain, seeing what you saw since 09, put us in, what is it, 2030? Gosh. Holy shit, 2030.
I didn't like that, by the way.
Yeah, I didn't like
That
it
was
either.
scary as hell.
What's your expectations for the club and the city and how this is going to look if you just had to, put your paintbrush on it?
So there's a lot of investment going on around the club, which is fantastic. Just on the other side of 27, the CFC headquarters is literally being constructed right now in the old admissions place.
Yeah.
That's going to be player housing on 2 floors. I think there's supposed to be a rooftop bar. There's supposed to be offices for Sage Hill, the company kind of behind it all, as well as CFC. And that's really like step one on permanence. Because if you think about it, CFC has been really ingrained in the community now since 2009.
Mm-hmm.
But like CFC doesn't own Finley Stadium. Like Finley Stadium is the community's community stadium.
Mhm.
They've rented offices. They've, their office has been like the back of a minivan at one point in time, right? Like
For sure.
it's really the first kind of permanence. And they've opened up now like an actual real merch shop. Like it used to be kind of Winder Biner for years and years, and it still is kind of a part of Winder Biner, but it's now below on River Street. Like an actual like full on CFC. I think you might eventually be able to get some other random soccer gear there. So you're seeing like the thing that already existed. Like CFC is in the consciousness of this town, but making more permanence and then like kind of permanently ingraining that like CFC and Chattanooga are in a lot of ways one and the same.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see more and more of that. Obviously the academy is now a part of the actual organization really for the first time. They kind of operated this weird kind of licensing the name sort of deal. It was just a bunch of like youth associations coming together under the name. So you're starting to see a little bit more of that, which hopefully will help produce higher level players coming out of this area, which would be massive because, having facilities and having, some dedication and dedicated training and high level coaching produces better players over time. And we want to see players from Chattanooga who now have a first team that is connected to MLS. They now have the ability to like really play at a high level professional environment if they're good enough, and then see what's next for them. And whether that's, it's time for us to move them on somewhere else or maybe move them into MLS or whatever else, like having those kind of environments is just super, super important. And like our first like elite level academy in MLS next, I think starts this coming school year.
Okay.
So realistically speaking, we're not going to see super elite kind of academy players produced in mass for several years. Like this takes time.
It's like a hub.
It's going to take time. It's going to take, more investment, whatever. But like, look on the field right now I think it's from Rome, and kind of came through in GSA. One of the club's partners in North Georgia, Arwen Ortiz. Really good example of this. I think his family's Honduran originally, but they've been here for a long time. That's an 18-year-old who's on his first pro contract right now. And, he's going to have the opportunity to train in a professional environment, which he already did last year with the team. But now he's going to get a chance to like prove that he's good enough to play in games and be helped along by older pros. And we'll see what his ceiling is. And something I strongly believe in when it comes to young players is I don't want players to like feel that kind of pressure, like they have to perform, they have to make it, whatever. Like, give him time. We'll see what happens for him. And matches like this, to talk about today for a second, matches like this are a great opportunity because it's the first match of the season, preseason game. We are 6 weeks away from the regular season beginning, so no one's getting probably more than 45 minutes today. Like, you're gonna play them. The result does not matter at all, one bit. So play in front of some fans, play in front of a good team with some high level players who were in the same position that we're in, like just knocking the rust off, and see what you got. And we saw that a couple years ago with Damian Rodriguez, who's another Dalton kid, who absolutely obliterated Atlanta in the first half.
We were talking and doing our homework, and man, over 10 different countries are represented on this Chattanooga Football Club roster, which to me is crazy when you really put it into perspective. So I think as you're talking and kind of painting the picture of the landscape, this is going to go from a national to potentially like worldwide recognized, type of brand. And that only speaks to, what has happened. And Chattanooga is already on the forefront from a economic and a development standpoint. So it's just refreshing. And any Chattanoogan, I think, has to be excited for what the future holds for not only this team, but for the city for sure.
100%. If I think back to, CFC, when it was an amateur team, a lot of summer, a lot of college players, we weren't necessarily like recruiting tons and tons of Americans.
Yeah.
In those early years, really the first decade, the amateur years, it was a lot of internationals. So I think the number, don't quote me here, but the number is like somewhere like 45, 47 countries have been represented or have had a player represented at CFC.
That's crazy.
We've got supporter owners in 32 countries, maybe. In addition to all 50 states. Like, CFC is an incredibly international brand at this point in time, which is the weirdest thing possible. Because why would anyone know or care? But for whatever reason, what we've done here resonates.
Especially to Malcolm's point, the fact of what all the recognition we're getting as just a city in itself, just the city. And then now, see what CFC's moved up fast. Because Sam said it great. He was like, we have been the darling of every league we have been in.
Yeah.
And so now agents are they're well ran, great town. Let's be honest, relatively cheap cost of living.
Yeah.
Stuff matters. And now you're getting housing. That's something nobody else, I think, in this realm of teams in the next pro, they don't have that.
Yeah.
This is going to be you're kind of sitting in this weird spot where you're not to the level of MLS yet. But as a next pro team, you got the best facilities, and you're going to be easy for these internationals to come in. And learning about that, because I work at Bryan College, so we're learning internationals all the time, how you get these guys here. They just want to stay and play soccer because they don't know any other outlet. Sure, you can try to go into business, you can try to do these other things, but hey, man, give me 5-6 years to play some soccer. And if I can just drive right down here, and the Southeast is finally picking up on this, hey, we can be really good at soccer thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's why Atlanta United's turned into a madhouse. This franchise is going to be spectacular for years because it's doing spectacular things. But I just can't believe what it's turned into. And the darling aspect was great because I was like, wow, it really does feel like this whole new organization, just Chattanoogans being Chattanoogans, and you guys are being the craziest fans possible.
Well, we certainly try. If you think about it, we were started in 2009, right? Charlotte, MLS.
Yeah.
They started 2021, 2022, somewhere in there. Nashville started in 2020.
Yep.
Atlanta started in 2017. We were first.
Way ahead.
Birmingham, their franchise in the championship started in 2017, 2018, somewhere in there. We were the first ones. We were really the team. There were teams in Florida before.
Yeah.
That came and went a little bit. But we were the ones in the Southeast that really put the Southeast on the map that soccer can succeed here. It's the middle of SEC country. You could do literally anything else.
Those two big games we talked about earlier had to have made an impact for probably them.
Oh yeah.
And then y'all's fan section, they're no offense to Chattanooga, but if Chattanooga can do this, what
that was always the question is if they can do it, why can't we have 80 billion more people than they do. Like, how do we not? And honestly, like, as credit, when they were awarded their MLS expansion, that front office, when it got first put together, came up here. They were here, I'm pretty sure, for the NPSL final. They made a couple other visits because they saw what was happening here, and they wanted to know, like, we're going to do the first MLS team in the Southeast. Like, you guys are already pulling ridiculous stuff for your market size. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, what's working here? And I think that's one of the reasons why Atlanta United immediately resonated with a lot of folks down there, because it came across as authentic. Like, you know, for so long, soccer was considered to be this kind of like white suburban soccer mom type thing.
Oh yeah,
sure.
And Atlanta is one of the most culturally diverse places with like the strongest Black culture really in America.
Speak on it.
And they, to their credit, went in and said, well, shit, like, if we're going to be true to Atlanta, if we're going to do Atlanta soccer right, like, we gotta get to know some folks and really make sure this community knows that, like, this is their team too. And I think you see it every day. Like, they do a great job. Yeah.
That's such a good point, man. And also, I think from I've never seen an ownership group like. I know the Falcons. I'm from Atlanta.
Okay.
I've been a Falcons fan since I've been 7.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. But to see the stadium in Mercedes be so multi-purpose that you don't know if you're going to a Falcons game or an Atlanta United game, because it's that 50-50 is genius on behalf of Arthur Blank and his organization.
They were willing to spend real money to make sure it was right for both.
Yeah.
They were willing to devote in like the training center complex or whatever. They were willing to spend real money to make sure that the president of the Falcons organization and the president of the Atlanta United organization, like, their offices were the same square footage.
They speak. They're synonymous.
Everything was meant to be, this is just as important to me as this.
Yeah.
And I think you see that in how they're run. You've seen that in Atlanta United's had a bit of a rough run for their standards the last few years.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they made that ridiculous run to the Eastern Conference semifinals this year after selling, their 2 of their biggest star attackers. And I think you guys have someone coming on here to talk more specifically about them. But, like, they made $45 million in player sales over the summer, and they're about to spend it. And again, I think Doug will be able to share a lot more about, where they are in that process and who and all that kind of stuff. But, like, they're going to spend some money, because just accidentally, walking backwards into the Eastern Conference semifinal isn't good enough for that organization. So we'll see.
I want to kind of get into the weeds now. I love all the culture questions. You guys did a great job handling, like, the culture of Chattanooga questions. I want to let you nerd out a little bit about CFC.
Okay.
I have some questions when it comes to nerding out.
Hit me.
So what are you looking for in terms of this team this year, in terms of how the team is made up, the roster, things like that? If somebody who's not mostly like us, super familiar with CFC, who are some guys that we should be watching out for?
So it's after 2:00, right? So the starting lineup is probably out.
2:15.
Let's see if we can pull that up here, because I will feel a lot smarter if I.
We got those notes, didn't we?
It's always fun.
Here we go. A trialist at center back. That'll be fun. So let's start off in the attack. So Marcus Nagelstad is starting at striker. He'll be, again, I'm pretty sure this group plays for the first half and the first half only. So he is the all-time leading goal scorer in CFC history. I think it's like 59 or something like that. So obviously you're going to look to him. He scored 2 goals against Atlanta United 2 years ago. He's a fox in the box. And he's like, so what? He's like, 33 now or something like that. Yeah. So he's not the type of
young.
He's not the type of player that's going to be like running all around the pitch, super, super athletic. Like, he's a real smart player. He makes good runs. He knows how to shake a defender for just a split second. And if you give him an open look, he will hit the target. If I look at through the rest of the roster. A new player to watch for is number 15, Steve Louis-Jean. Midfield got totally retooled. At least defensive midfield got totally retooled for CFC. So we'll be watching him to see what he can do. New goalkeeper. The last couple of years we've been really handled well by Jean-Antoine. He's back in California. I think he might be retiring. Not 100% sure. But we've brought in kind of an elder statesman, 40-year-old Eldon Jakubovic, who's got Premier League experience, like the English Premier League experience. He's ton of games there. Real good player.
So are we going to have two 40-year-olds matching up in goal today?
Yes. Yeah, that's absolutely what's happening. Yeah.
Okay.
Milo Garvanian at left back. He was a bit of a jack of all trades last year because of some injuries and issues, but he's mainly a left back, loves to get up and down the field and attack. He ended up with 5 goals and 7 assists last year. Real productive player from the defense. And a kind of a returning player, Tate Robertson at right back. Kind of a similar profile as Milo. Will look to get up and down the field. Great service of a ball. He played for CFC back in 2021 and 2022. Then a couple years away in Lexington. Now he's back. Those are just some of the key highlights here. In terms of CFC's roster, I think there's definitely 6, 7-ish slots probably still to be filled. We've only got 2 signed center backs, so in the next 5 weeks or so, I would expect a couple of more center backs. Probably need another left back. Probably need another striker. I would assume somebody in central midfield. And we've got 2 goalkeepers on the roster. You'll see in the second half Michael Beretta, who's a local Chattanooga kid. We'll see him in the second half, but you'll probably see a third goalkeeper added in the coming weeks.
Has much changed, like as far as signing windows, trade windows like that since they've moved up, or is it kind of still all the same when it comes to soccer?
Yeah, it's pretty consistent through in the pro era at least, through these leagues or whatever. Like you bring back however many players you're going to bring back, and then you look at early the pieces, and like there's obviously a money component that's not public, right? Yeah. But you look to add pieces early that you need and that fit and you can get done early. And there's kind of this little bit of a lull where teams and players are, kind of feeling each other out. And then you get to preseason time and some players just don't have contracts yet. And that tends to start really moving and like you've also got to consider, like, we're MLS Next Pro, it's the 3rd division, right? So there might be players on trial with an MLS club that maybe don't get a contract. So then they kind of drop down and see what's happening in the 2nd division and USL Championship. And that produces a knock on where players might get released after that point and might start, considering us. And that's just the way it goes. So this might really continue all the way to, it really might continue all the way to the beginning of the regular season.
Okay.
Well, what about your new manager? You got Chris Nugent, who's new, obviously, in terms of first-year head coach. And what do you know about him, and what do you think of the hire?
So I really like Chris. He's been an assistant for the last 3 seasons now, before becoming the interim head coach at the end of last season, getting the full-time job. Incredibly smart, incredibly analytical. If you're looking for like kind of what might be different tactically from this group, if you or the listeners are a little bit familiar with the transition that started to occur for the U.S. men's national team, where Greg Berhalter's system was emphasized control with the ball, almost above all else. That's a little bit what CFC and our previous head coach Rod Underwood's tenure was like, especially when we were at a talent disadvantage. His teams always wanted to have the ball whenever possible, because if you have the ball, you can't get scored on. And so like you would have to try to kill some games a little bit or kill some time in games through just simple possession. One of the drawbacks of that is that you can also kind of kill your attack a little bit. And always, like, there's always a balance with those kind of things. And going back to the US men, with new coach Mauricio Pochettino there, it seems like there's been a little bit of an unlocking the control and allowing for non-specified movements, and like it's okay to go long. It's okay to be a little bit more direct and go in behind if it's on or whatever it is. And I think we're going to see a little bit of that from Chris, who cites Mauricio Pochettino's time at Tottenham Hotspur as a big influence on his life and coaching.
Interesting. Okay. Because we have a lot of news this year.
Yeah.
From C-suite all the way down to coaching.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. CFC player is now the women's head coach.
Juan was the assistant, right?
Juan was the assistant women's coach for the last couple of years. And then he was a 7 or 8 year player for CFC. You were talking about like international guy, like just came here because he knew like Juan's journey is fantastic. And then I'll get out of you guys' way because you got someone coming on. Juan's journey is fantastic because he knew a player that played for CFC, a Spanish guy, a Spanish friend of his.
Yeah.
So he just like showed up the last week of the regular season in 2015. Hey, I've got my friend. Like, can he train? Yeah, sure. Oh, this guy's really good. Oh, didn't we play against you last year? You know what? Like, why don't we just sign you to a quick contract, an amateur contract? It was real simple. Played in the last game of the regular season off the bench. Played in all 6 playoff games that year, which culminated in the 18,000 person game here at Finley Stadium, where he had 2 assists. Wow. That was Juan Hernandez's first season here.
That's the most like semi-pro story you could get. It's like,
Yeah.
I got a buddy.
Sure,
You guys want to bring him up?
Exactly. And now, he did that thing. Then he came back the next year, and then he came back the next year, and the next year made Chattanooga his home. He got married, like coaching in the academy. Now he's the women's team head coach in addition to his academy work. Like, wow. That is the CFC story. Like, whether you're and it works for players, it works for staff, it works for literally anyone in the community. A lot of us aren't from here. I am, but a lot of us aren't from here. You came for whatever reason. You stayed because you liked it. You then couldn't leave, and you're like, I may as well make this place my home.
Never leave it.
Oh, can't ever leave.
Never leave it.
Right.
I want the city on my back.
Yeah.
We'll get a tattoo.
Yeah.
All right, my last question I have for you, Matt, is what are you looking for from this match today against Atlanta United? Like, what do you want to see if you're a CFC fan from your guys, from your squad?
So I look at sports. I cannot help but look at sports from an analytical perspective. I just can't. So first and foremost, no injuries. Just, you hate to see them.
Yeah,
don't want to see it now. Second thing is, it's a new coach, a bunch of new players. I think some trialists in at least in the first half and probably more in the second half. So I'm looking for what does the tactical evolution with a new head coach and a little bit of preseason time to prepare. Like, what does that start to look like? It's the first game of preseason, so the intensity is not going to be crazy high. This is not going to be a regular season game. And playing against a really good team, especially compared to like our level, right? We're playing against a really good team. High level players, big point to prove. Not necessarily today, but like for their journey, for their season. So, I want to see like, what are we trying to do out there? It doesn't matter if it doesn't come off. It doesn't matter if we get our ass kicked, right? Like that's not what matters here. Can we get some minutes in the legs? Can we figure out, some of the concepts? Where are going to be some of the problems? Can we kind of trap them a little bit? Can we force them out of their comfort zone? And can we just make some progress and have some fun and get everybody some minutes? And they'll come back in 2 weeks for another preseason game.
Matt,
Great
you're
stuff.
the man, dude.
Matt. 3 claps for my dude, Matt, man.
Thanks,
Please
guys.
come back on, dude.
Okay.
You're fantastic.
You have my number now.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
We got to run. Seriously. I know we're talking about football real quick, 30 seconds. The other football, championship weekend. We going Chiefs or Buffalo?
Chiefs or Buffalo? Okay. Now, let's understand that my NFL knowledge is real bad. But it's at Kansas City, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
It's an Arrowhead.
I'm not picking against the Chiefs in Kansas City when a victory means that Taylor Swift goes to the Super Bowl again.
Bingo. Conspiracy theory. I love it already.
Smart.
I don't even care if that's a real conspiracy theory or not, but like, come on.
It makes sense.
Makes sense.
It makes sense.
Come on. The odds, if there is a thing going on, the odds are going to help them a little bit, probably.
And Philadelphia or Washington?
Interesting, because I don't know the Eagles' record right now, and I don't know where the game's being played.
In Philly.
But I
In
did.
In
Okay,
Philly.
it's in Philly.
Yep.
I did watch that quarterback for Washington when they were playing the Falcons, because a friend of mine invited me to watch, and it was very
Great
depressing
game.
for my friend. And that guy seems really good, and it would make Dan Snyder really, really sad. And I think that's hilarious for the vibes. So I'm gonna go Washington in a little upset, a little road upset.
Go Commanders, baby. That's one for
Let's
you, GT.
go,
That's
man.
one
love
for you,
it.
GT.
Make sure you check out the podcast, the Section 9 podcast on Twitter at Section 9 Pod as well, 109 Pod as well. Matt, it's been great having you on. We appreciate you stopping by and hanging out with us, talking a little CMC, educating us and our listeners.
Hey, thanks for having me. This was fun.
Good. We'll do it again sometime.
All right,
Love
sounds
it.
good.
Good man, man.
There you go.
Matt, thank you, man.
Hey, I got to take a call real quick.
All right.
Do your
Do your
thing.
thing. With that being said, we can bring our next guest on. Miggy and I can,
Yeah, absolutely. We can run.
yeah, we can absolutely
We can run.
Doug, what's up, man?
Hey, how are you?
Good to meet you. I'm Greg. This
Doug,
is Miggy.
I'm
Hey,
big.
nice to meet you.
Pleasure is mine, Doug.
Step on up.
Welcome
Have
on
a
Chat It
seat.
Up.
Yeah.
Glad y'all invited me. Thank you.
I appreciate you answering the DM last night.
I have some OCD about stuff on my phone. If I get a little red number on anything, I have to get it off the phone immediately.
Oh, you would hate my life because
Yeah.
you just
I can't. When I see people's phones that have like 50 messages on there or 1,000 emails,
Yeah.
I get shakes.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
I don't blame you. I'm in your boat. Like I can't do text messages, but my emails, oh my gosh, it's bad. There is a lot.
What you got there? You teach the mocks?
Oh yeah, UTC softball. We won the conference last year. I'm an
Nice.
assistant coach.
Oh, okay,
and I
cool.
just got my ring literally
Nice.
yesterday.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's I thought I'd show it off while we're out.
Yeah, yeah.
today.
Yeah, you
Got
earned
right?
it.
Yeah, we did. It was a crazy season last year. Also, a pretty crazy season for Atlanta United last year as well.
Yeah.
In terms of where y'all finished in the regular season, barely qualifying for the playoffs, and then making a crazy run to the semifinals in the Eastern Conference. First of all, talk about the season last year and how kind of the ups and downs and the ebbs and the flows, and then kind of rolling into this year.
They started the season full of hope. They had Yorgis Hakamakis, Thiago Almada, Caleb Wiley. They had what I thought was one of the more talented rosters in Major League Soccer. And then injuries started hitting. They lost to Philadelphia, the third or fourth match of the year. They gave up a 2-goal lead. They actually gave up 3 goals, but one got called back. And from that point forward, it just shattered the team's psyche. And then they sold Yakamaki, sold Almada, sold Wiley for, it was like $50 million total is the money that came in. And they squeaked into the playoffs on decision day.
Yep.
As you said, they had some other results go their way, able to hold on and beat Montreal in the wild card, and then stun Miami.
That was incredible.
It was one of those things. I was on a Miami radio show, and they were asking about Atlanta United playing Miami. And I said, actually, of all the teams in the East, if Atlanta United could pick one to play, it would be Miami because they had beaten them 2 out of the past 3 times. Miami wants to play soccer, which some other teams will play a little bit, but not all the time. And that fit perfectly into what Atlanta United could do well at that time of the year, at the end of the year, which was counterattack. So all they had to do was create a turnover, and they were going to beat Miami down the field. And that's what happened in 2 of the 3 games.
That's because Lionel Messi is old as shit now, right? Yeah, he's old. He's washed up. No, I'm just kidding. He's actually pretty darn good with Inter Miami as well. Yeah, it's so I guess I want to kind of rewind a little bit and to talk a little bit about you, covering Atlanta United. How did you get involved in that? Were you a big soccer player growing up? Were you a big soccer fan growing up? How did you get involved with it?
Yeah, I started playing soccer when I was 5 years old. I played 2 to 3 seasons a year, outdoor, indoor, high school ball. I played a little travel ball, got extremely lightly recruited to play D3 soccer.
Hey, I played D3 baseball, so
And
we're right
that
there.
was like a letter and a phone call from
Yeah.
a coach. So I can't think of a worse word than recruited
We're
to
counting it. We're
explain
counting it.
Oh, we are
Explain that
absolutely
interest.
counting it, Doug.
And then, I graduated from Georgia, moved around the South, newspaper jobs, and finally was able to come home. I grew up in Atlanta and worked for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution.
Same.
Nice.
Same.
And some international soccer events started coming into the city, starting with Club America AC Milan a long, long time ago, 2009. And I was the only one on staff that really knew soccer. So I started covering those, and then Atlanta United became kind of a whisper in 2012, and then it became a thing in 2014. And after the first couple of games, my boss said, okay, this is yours full time. This is all you're going to cover. So 95% of what I cover is this. Usually wherever they go, I go. I don't quite know this season if we're going to travel all the time as we've done in the past. But it's been fun. It's been a good time.
I want to talk a little bit about a connection with Chattanooga before we get to it, into the weeds with Atlanta United's roster. But Noah Cobb, I was reading up a little bit about him and want to kind of hear his outlook coming into the season. As they've said, he's one of the best and most up-and-coming center backs in maybe even the world. So talk to me a little bit about him. He went to for those who don't know, he went to the Baylor School as well, right here in Chattanooga. So talk to us a little bit about Noah Cobb.
Yeah, he's got a really bright future. He and Efrain Morales, who you'll see today too, are the two, I think, future center backs for Atlanta United. They're 21 and 19 or 20, I think. Both homegrown signings by Atlanta United. Very tall, very athletic, very fast. Cobb had 17 appearances, I think it was last year, including 11 starts or so. Really held his own. Had one bad game against Christian Benteke, but he made a lot of defenders have bad games against him last year.
Yeah.
So, Atlanta United right now has Steen Gregerson and Derek Williams and another guy, Luis Abram, who are the guys right now. But you'll see Cobb get spot starts. He got called up to the U.S. Under-20s last year. They went down to Chile and played. Morales is a national team player for Bolivia. But Cobb is really smart, really athletic. The former technical director, Carlos Bocanegra, described him as a future national team player for the United States. So he's got a really bright future. He's just got to get consistent minutes at this point.
What are you I guess we'll talk about it now, but with the changeover to Ronnie Delia, do you feel like there's going to be a big difference between last year's team and this year's team? Style-wise, I guess.
My opinion of coaches is they're only as good as the players they have.
Yeah.
If a coach has fantastic players, chances are he's going to look brilliant no matter what tactics he puts in. Same if you don't have a good roster. I think that Dahlia is a good coach. He's proven it at different places in Norway, Major League Soccer, Scotland. He's won trophies at a lot of places. So I think he's going to help Atlanta United, even if the roster right now isn't as strong as we think it's going to be by the end of this transfer window, where they can find two designated players. They're reportedly on the verge of signing Miguel Almiron, former Atlanta United player. Another target of theirs got hurt today for Middlesbrough. The injury diagnosis has not been announced, so that will determine if Atlanta United keeps pursuing this player. Style-wise, yes, they're going to try to clog the middle of the field. They want opponents to have to play around them. They want to press aggressively, win the ball in the defensive third. He says it's a shorter distance from there to the goal than if you're trying to build out of the back to the goal. So that's maybe what you see some today.
Doug, being from Atlanta, you and me both, the city has changed quite a bit. How has this now become the hottest ticket in the city over an Atlanta Hawks game? I mean, what used to be the Thrashers, the Dream, and of course in the same building, the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, if you notice attendance for United game, it's really hard sometimes to get a ticket, whereas for the Falcons, you can walk in with no problem in the first quarter and be fine.
Well, for context on that, it's a good point, but for context, the Falcons are usually open to 70,000 every game. Atlanta United is usually open to 45 for most games. So it's a little more supply for the Falcons than for Atlanta United.
Sure.
But it is a hard ticket to get. The season ticket numbers decreased a little bit going into this season, the retention rate, I should say, simply because last year, for the most part, wasn't what anyone thought. It was not a great season until the very end. But they're hoping those retention rate numbers go up as they get off to a good start this year. But it's a fun thing. I mean, all that success they had the first 3 years really set the bar fairly high for the fan expectations and ticket demand and things like that. So it's fun. I'm curious to see what's going to happen this year. They're only opening the stadium to full capacity for 2 games, but that could change depending upon how the season goes. The Hawks have been the Hawks.
Yeah.
Middle of the road for a
Yep.
long
He's a
time.
huge
just-
huge
guy.
Hawks guy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
They're off to a decent start this year. They've stumbled in the past couple of games. The Dream they've sold out season tickets for the second consecutive year.
Yeah,
It's the Caitlin Clark effect on that, but however he gets done, it gets done.
absolutely.
And the Braves finally made a signing 2 days ago.
What's that?
Profile.
Yeah, the outfielder from San
You said
Diego.
Padres. Yeah. Look at me.
Yeah.
Baseball
And
guy.
they've got some
Baseball
pitchers.
guy.
Pitchers coming back and pitchers coming up. So where'd you grow up in Atlanta?
So you know where obviously Tucker is.
Yeah, I know Tucker, yeah.
So I was born and raised in Tucker.
Okay.
And then I moved to Conyers in middle school. So I did that. So it's like I'm from Atlanta, but you're not from Atlanta.
Yeah, I grew up in Mableton.
Okay. So yeah.
Six Flags right there.
Yeah.
Yep, that's where I'm from.
Look, two Georgia boys. Now Chattanooga's home, man. They say, because you went to Georgia,
Yeah.
there's a saying by Dale Carter, who was a Tennessee Volunteer defensive back. They said the real Georgia boys go to Tennessee. So I went to University of Tennessee.
Okay.
And so
Tell me how the trophy count is going in that race.
listen, I can't make a 1980 joke anymore, and I'm so pissed
I
about it.
know it sucks.
No,
It sucks.
That's all we
Tennessee's
had.
got a bright future, really bright future in
I
football.
appreciate
They're obviously great in
I
basketball,
appreciate it. Doug.
Baseball,
women's
not bad.
basketball. No, they're, Tennessee fans have lots of reasons to be proud.
Listen, if I had a son, he would be getting coached by Kirby Smart for what it's worth.
That's the dream.
So,
Right?
Kind of have some.
It's all about the NIL right now. All about the NIL for everybody.
Oh, yeah, I can only imagine.
So tell me, what are we going to see today from Chattanooga?
We learned a little bit. We learned a little bit today.
we got educated today.
I don't know if we
folks.
can give you a full rundown on CFC or whatnot, but you know what I'm really excited to see from Atlanta United is Brad Guzan.
Yeah.
Really excited about seeing him. I went down, not this last playoff run, but the one before that, and they won a playoff game. And obviously, I'm not a huge soccer guy outside of the United States men's national team, women's national team. So I remember seeing him playing as I was growing up. He's still hanging around at 40 years old. Tell me a little bit about him and how much longer do you think he has, and what's his level of play right now at 40 years young?
He was fantastic for Atlanta United last season. He kept them in the playoff series against Miami. That save in Game 3 where he had to reach back behind himself as he was jumping to the right and tipped it with his left hand was one of the saves of the year. He struggled the year before, but he was coming back from an Achilles tear that he had suffered in 2021 or 2022. And so he didn't quite have the spring in his legs, didn't have the reflexes. But, a year out from 2 years out from that injury, he looked fantastic last year. He looks great so far. The preseason, the few training camps they've only had like 8 or 9. But the dude's a maniac, as Pineda would call him, Rob Valentino would call him. Keeps himself in top shape. Just, you hear him in the locker room. You hear him coming out training, just encouraging the teammates and stuff. Just a good guy. He loves the game, loves to play. He's got, I think this is his last year with Atlanta United. I can't remember if there's an option on the contract for next year, but I think he's just going to keep playing until he just can't anymore. And he's a good culture guy too. He's good for the young guys. So were you here when the U.S. men's national team played in Chattanooga back in 2017? I think
I
it was.
I was in Louisiana.
Okay, you were in
You
Louisiana.
weren't here yet, were you?
I was not here. I was
You were here.
Yeah,
I was in
nowhere near
Knoxville.
yet. We were talking about with our previous guest. He does the CFC podcast, and he was just talking about looking back with the wild times that were just this put together rogue operation, getting volunteers, money coming in, and then you have 18,000 people filling this place for a semifinal. What?
Yeah.
And so we were just talking about the women's national team coming up here right at the back-to-back weeks, just a crazy different time. And both fan bases kind of have taken hold of a city that you didn't really expect, because we didn't, because it's hey, there's this CFC thing coming to Chat.
Right.
And I just moved down here, and I was like, we'll see how that works. Kind of same with United. I was like, man, as a Hawks fan, as somebody that watches the Falcons from afar and now a lot more closely, and then a Braves fan, you're like, it's pretty fair weather.
Yeah.
It's a fair weather town. It's always got that knock on it. Dude, it's just taken a hold in both places. The South has really taken a hold of soccer more than I thought it would.
It's pretty remarkable, isn't it? And y'all know that the United States Soccer Federation is building its first ever national training center just south of Atlanta right now. Arthur Blank donated $50 million toward the 200-something million they're going to use to construct it. I toured it last 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I toured it.
Where is it now, Doug?
It's in
Specifically?
Fayette County,
It's in
Fayetteville.
Fayette- okay.
It's right across the street from Trilith Studios, where the
Okay.
Marvel movies
I
are
know
made.
exactly where you're at.
It's they broke ground last April. I toured it 2 weeks ago. It's a massive, massive complex.
Yeah.
They haven't they've just started construction of the actual building, but all the fields are they're graded. They're not fine graded yet, but they're graded. But you can see where all the fields are going to be. But I'm curious. I bring this up because I'm curious how the construction of that is going to help all the other teams that aren't MLS teams in the South, because they for clinics and things to the U.S. Soccer headquarters. That's kind of the goal of it, is to raise the level of soccer around the country. So it's going to be fun to watch.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Got my family just rolled up here.
Oh yeah, there's Mama Bear.
Yeah.
With little Gracie Lee hanging out. All right. Another, sort of roster question that I wanted to ask outside of Brad was, in this match today, who are some guys that we should be watching out for? Like, who are some guys that that'll jump off the page at you if you're kind of a casual, football fan or soccer fan, and maybe you're here for the first time watching Atlanta United? Who should you be watching out for?
Okay, they've only added a couple of new players this season so far. There's a Japanese striker. First name is Kamen. He's going to be, I think, in the second half. I think he might be fun to watch.
Can you pronounce his last name?
Nope.
I'm just kidding.
It's Togish. It's Togashi.
Come on, Doug.
Kamen, because there's not an inflection in it, so I think it's Togashi. I think. Y'all put me on the spot on that.
I know. I'm sorry.
And then there's a Polish midfielder they traded from DC United. He's actually was a designated player with DC United, and Atlanta United got him for just a couple $100,000. He's a central midfielder. He's one to watch. He's a really veteran guy. He played at Leeds United in England. He's good. Noah Cobb, watch him. He's going to be fun. And Pedro Amador, the fullback, I don't think is going to play today. But those are some of the main guys to watch. There's a couple of homegrowns to watch as players for the future. Ashton Gordon, Matthew Edwards. They're guys who aren't going to start a lot this year, but in a few years you might see them starting for Atlanta United. But just watch some of those guys today.
Interesting. Last thing I want to ask, what have you seen as far as like player growth and really player financials? Like, have you seen this grow in the last couple of years, and do you think it's going to keep going up for the MLS?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you see,
as the other sports.
I've lost count of how many transfers out I've seen this year from MLS of teams trying to buy MLS players for, $6 million, $12 million bucks.
Yeah.
It's kind of becoming more routine than it was even a few years ago. Atlanta United, of course, set the mark when they sold Almiron to Newcastle. I think the base was 19, but it went up to 27 million. There are some that are approaching that now. And then Atlanta United, of course, sold Almada. Yakamaki's was $10 million. Almada, I think, was $20 million. Numbers like that. It's just, it depends on the ownership, and it depends on just smart buys. You don't want to buy. It's tough for MLS clubs to buy a young guy for $15 million and hopes you're going to sell him for $25. It's more the buying for $2 to $5 and hopes you could sell for $8 to $10 at this point. But as the more the revenues come in, the more you'll start to see more of that.
Any other culture questions, Mick? You're a big culture guy.
I mean, I'm a huge culture guy, but I think you've knocked out the majority of it. I'm trying to think. I mean, obviously, we're talking about football.
Favorite Atlanta rap band?
Rap of all time. Gosh. I just want to say I respect legends. And for me, I love music. I used to do a lot in terms of the Chattanooga hip hop scene. Outkast, I would have to just say, they are unequivocally number one. But for me personally, me alone, I don't know why I feel this way.
You don't have to explain it as long as you like it, man.
Future for me.
Yeah.
I think he's done it for 15 years. I grew up listening to Future since high school. He's still going strong in the city. Obviously needs to stay out of trouble. Young Thug is an honorable mention. But his raps sound like Blue's Clues at this point. I think the DA is listening a little bit. And Ludacris as well as T.I.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my Mount Rushmore. What about you?
Outkast.
Yeah.
Outkast. Yeah.
I just think they're just so good.
Alexei Moranchuk, Russian, who plays for Atlanta United, and he signed from Atalanta last year. Huge rap fan.
Yeah.
Huge rap fan. Knows all the Atlanta rap groups.
Oh no,
It's crazy.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we it's great music here in Chattanooga. There's actually going to be a rap show here tonight.
Oh, okay.
One of the biggest local rappers here.
They didn't invite me to. I don't.
No,
They
we
didn't invite me
get
to
you some
perform.
passes. We got
What's
you.
going on with that?
We got
Hey,
you.
you're in, man. You want to spit some bars right now?
No.
A culture question for me before I toss it off to Greg. You know, you and me, we're from Atlanta. We're wing connoisseurs.
Ah.
What is your chicken wing flavor of choice?
Lemon pepper. Lemon pepper.
My man,
Yeah.
my brother. You're a true.
I haven't
ATA.
had them from the certain place that you're probably thinking of in Atlanta.
Yeah.
No, I've never been there, man. I've never been to Magic City.
No, not.
No,
You and Lou Williams?
me? No, I don't like those establishments.
I haven't had those, but it actually made a New York Times list of best food in Atlanta. The wings from Magic City.
And
No
they're
way.
actually on DoorDash.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, so if your wife is
They
like,
have
hey,
special DoorDash drivers?
yeah, I mean, I'd probably be more than likely in there. Nah,
premium
love it,
pricing,
love it,
dog.
Doug. You got great taste and great takes from you, brother.
All right, my
All right,
last thing.
guys.
My last thing is I don't know how much of a football fan you are in terms of the NFL, but who you got this weekend? Bills, Patriots, or excuse me, Bills, Chiefs, or Commanders and Eagles?
Two of the Atlanta United communications guys are big Bills fans, so I know which side of the bread is buttered on. I'm going to go with the Bills
Smart man.
for them, and then Eagles Redskins is like danged if you do, danged if you don't. One of the other comms guys is a big Redskins fan, so I'll go with the Redskins just because I want to see him happy. They've suffered for a long, long time.
Yeah. And
How about
it would be-
y'all?
It would be fun to see Dan Snyder sort of like
Yeah,
get
yeah.
even more upset about them. being
That would be
good
awesome.
Now that he's sold the team.
There's few people that deserve to be more unhappy than
Yeah,
that
facts, for sure, for sure. Him and Deshaun Watson for sure.
Yeah,
Get in
not
that
great
same room.
people on the best
Not
people
the
list.
best people
Right.
in the world. Yeah.
Personally, I'm rooting for the Bills and the Commanders. I'm going to make my official picks. What I think is going to happen. I think when you jump off the air, but
Okay.
that's who I want to win.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's going to be a toss-up between Philly and Washington. I'll make my pick a little later, too.
All right.
But I will make one pick right now. I'm not going against Patrick Mahomes in a way to three-peat. Give me Kansas City, and they're going to take care of business.
All right.
I think I'm in the same want to. I want to see Jayden. We got our other buddy that you're taking his seat today. He is a humongous Commanders fan.
Okay.
And his father, old school Texan, but actually loves the Commanders. Not the Commanders, Redskins.
Always
Right.
Redskins. fan.
Always.
Yeah.
I mean, hey,
I keep getting that wrong all the time.
Listen, if your mama called you one thing,
Yeah.
I'm going to call you one thing.
I call them the San Diego Padres too, or the San Diego Chargers. I keep doing that.
I always say
Yeah.
San Diego Chargers.
Yeah.
And then I'm always going to say Redskins probably first.
Yeah, and Oakland Raiders. I keep doing that too.
Oh yeah, that one's tough to get rid of.
It's so
Yeah.
tough.
Doug
Doug
even sound good.
Doug Roberson has been our guest here, reporter for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Find him on Twitter. What is that? At Doug Roberson, AGC or JC.
AJC, that's
Yeah.
it.
Atlanta
It's a little hard. The
Journal-Constitution.
glare is like really, the glare is
No,
really
all good,
tough on
man.
my screen here. But glad we got that. Thanks for coming on. We
Oh, yeah,
appreciate
anytime,
you,
guys.
Appreciate you being here.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
no
man.
doubt.
Enjoy
Yeah,
Chattanooga.
enjoy the.
Hey,
are you,
that press
are you-
box is nice.
Are you hanging out or are you driving right back afterwards?
No, my girlfriend and I are staying at the Marriott down there, and we're gonna hit the town
enjoy it,
tonight.
dude.
Perfect.
Where should we go? Where should we go?
Ooh,
Food-wise.
what are you looking for?
She's vegan,
Okay.
so we got to kind of incorporate that into whatever we do.
Fun fact, you're kind of in the Brussels sprout capital of the world.
Really?
Yes.
All right.
So
Oh,
there's
Did not know that.
there's some
Yeah.
great spots. I would say Feed is going to
downtown.
be down the
Feed.
street
Okay.
from here. Feed Company.
Feed
You
company.
can
All
kind
right.
of walk around to a couple places too if you want to grab a drink or you want to
Okay.
just try some different small food.
All right.
That's even a thing we can do here is like kind of want to pop in for some apps or even something like that. You can kinda
Okay.
walk around and bebop around. It'd be great.
All right. Well,
There's
hit me up
guys-
on Twitter if you have suggestions too.
I will. I'll tweet them to you or I'll DM them to you. 'cause
Okay.
It's probably going to be hard to remember.
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
Saying it to you.
All right.
We'll
We
shoot
ate
you
at
DM.
a honey seed for lunch. That was
Okay.
really good.
Hey,
Honey
great,
Seeds.
solid brunch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
chips.
that was really fun.
Did you get a little champagne? No.
No, man, not when I'm
Oh.
working. Not when I'm working.
Oh.
Smart man. Doug, we appreciate it, man.
All
Thanks,
right, guys.
guys.
No,
thank
thank
you.
you, brother. Seriously.
All right, boys, we got about 10 minutes till the match starts.
Absolutely.
I think we should just make our picks. Thank you, Doug.
Doug, you're the man. Enjoy chatty, man. Enjoy it.
Make our picks and whatnot. Man, we've had some fantastic guests today.
Oh my gosh, it's been so
You
good.
guys have been amazing.
Yeah.
It's been awesome. It's been
Soccer
great.
guys.
Yeah.
Good talkers.
They are big talkers, and I love
Good
it. And,
talkers.
he's bringing
Good.
different things to the table, not just soccer. He's like, hey,
I know.
tell us a little bit about CFC. Who's your favorite Atlanta rap group?
The
The whole-
Atlanta rap
I mean,
game.
I was That was A1.
I felt that because it really does feel like you guys in Memphis take it so differently than guys that don't grow up in a rap city.
Bro. Atlanta, Memphis, New York, LA, like these Houston. I mean, it's meccas for hip hop, and I think Atlanta has had that crown for so long. So I think it's like a language. If you see somebody from the A, you just know.
Yeah.
And
It's
it's certain
different,
things that he was saying that I understood, and vice versa. Doug was a phenomenal guest, man. As was my man Matt. Yeah.
All right, y'all want to make some picks? You want to talk about these games real
Let's
quick
do
before we
it.
get
I
up outta
mean,
here?
I know we gave a great synopsis earlier, and let's start with the NFC.
Yes.
Looking at Philadelphia and Washington, I'm going to start, and I'll make my pick and toss it to you guys. I do not think that the Commanders can stop the run, and that is going to be a long day. So I'm going to have to go Philadelphia. I think that this Eagles team is going to go. They're going to play physical. I think the injuries on the offensive line for Washington are going to be too much to overcome. Terry is great. It's going to take more. And I know Darius Slay is thinking about retiring.
Yep.
He's not going to do that without going back to the Super Bowl. And I think it's just too much. So give me Philly. And for what it's worth to those that it matters to, they're going to cover. Guys?
Can I throw a little stat at you when it comes to Saquon Barkley?
Yeah.
So they played the Commanders twice during the regular season. He gained 130 yards and 3 touchdowns on just 3 carries in those matchups. On 3 of his carries in those 2 matchups, he had 130 yards, 3 touchdowns. Now, on the 26 other carries that he went for 2 yards or less. So the big thing in this matchup, like you were talking about, is you have to find a way to contain Saquon Barkley. Don't let him hit that home run shot like he did against the Rams last week. Because as we've seen, Jalen Hurts, he's a little banged up. He's a little hurt now. He's got that knee
He's
injury.
very scared right now. You can tell he's a little skittish.
To me, like I know we had asked earlier in the show, we had asked Dalton about it. If I'm the Commanders, I know I like to play a lot of nickel, but I got to change something up.
Yeah.
Because if we don't stop Saquon Barkley, there is no chance in hell that we are winning this game.
Not at all.
So they got to find a way to stop Saquon. Daniels, he's trying to become the first rookie quarterback to lead a team to the Super Bowl. 5 others have reached the championship game and lost. He has an NFL best 87 quarterback rating for the postseason. And in the regular season, Washington's 5-3 on the road, with Daniels owning the 4th best QBR at 71 with 10 touchdowns and only 2 interceptions. With all that being said, the defense for Philly is going to be too much for Jayden Daniels. The Eagles are going to, unfortunately, go to the Super Bowl and win this game, in my opinion.
The narrative has to be Jayden Daniels a Superman. Like, I do feel like Superman can happen in the AFC on both those teams. Lamar's been that a lot this year. I'm kind of with you, man. That Eagles defense is very stout. No Nakobe Dean is a big factor. I'm taking Philly, but I would take the 6. I think this is going to be a little bit closer. I can see this being something ugly. Did you guys hear the Jake Elliott stat this week?
No.
He is the best postseason field goal kicker and the worst extra point kicker of all time. I think he's 23 for 23.
Come on.
And I think he's 21 for 30 from extra point.
That's
my
crazy.
God, what a
So
step back.
with that, I think Jake Elliott seals it. I think this is like 27-24 Eagles. And I'm going to be a little sad because I want our boy GT to have the best run he could possibly have.
Same.
But I just can't see the Commanders beating him. Can't do it.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, but good call by you last week. You gave the highest percentage with the Commanders to win that game against Detroit. Chase and I were around 20-25%,
Yeah.
but they balled out. But this Eagles defense is much better. They're much healthier. Despite Nakobe Dean not playing, they have a lot more depth than the Lions did. So it's going to be a tough time for our boy Jayden Daniels. Let's go to the other game real quick. Bills at the Chiefs. Want to start us again, Big?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start us again. I just think this is a legacy, and they have been really on cruise control, and we've talked about it. I think Patrick, he's a man on a mission, and that team, it's pick your poison, and I think that poison is going to be a heavy dosage of Kareem Hunt as well as Travis Kelce. Give me Kansas City to go back to the Super Bowl over the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, the big question is obviously,
I know.
can the Bills finally take down the Chiefs in the playoffs? They've lost them 3 straight times in the postseason. I said it earlier. I'll say it again. The Bills have lost 7 straight road playoff games. The defense needs to force turnovers. They need to force turnovers. They did it in the Baltimore game. They picked Mahomes off twice in their win over Kansas City earlier this year. If the Bills are going to win this game, it is going to be because they forced Kansas City into some turnovers. That's what they have to do. And the Bills have committed the fewest turnovers in the NFL this season with just 8 and produced a league-high 35 takeaways. So that margin is huge. It's one of the best we've ever seen in NFL history. The Bills play a clean game in Arrowhead. They force Kansas City into some mistakes. Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are going home on their jet, or not home to their jet. They're probably going on vacation, going to Cancun.
Oh, they're going to Cancun or
together
Cabo for sure.
Earlier than they did last year. Give me the Bills.
All right.
I absolutely love that, G. I didn't know if you're going to go there. It feels dumb to bet against Kansas City, but you know what?
Yes,
I'm riding it, dude.
Roll that dice, baby.
Getting Josh Allen, boys. Superman
Roll the
back
dice.
on the Cape. In the weirdest group that doesn't have a true A1, even though Shakir's second in yards after catch behind Jamar Chase. Shakir still doesn't feel like the number one. Coop doesn't feel like the number one. But it doesn't matter. He's got a lot of number ones, dude. You never know who's going to match up. I love Josh. I think he's going to probably run for a couple touchdowns, probably throw for a couple. Defense steps up, force some turnovers, but I think we're actually going to get another high-scoring game again. We're going to see some slow drives pounding each other around, but at 34-31, Bills.
That's what I'm talking about.
We're going to get a great Sunday, boys.
Oh, yeah, a thriller.
I'm
sure.
really excited about it. And I'm excited about this match that's about to happen right behind us.
Let's do it, boys.
Oh, let's do it
Atlanta
to it.
United.
We got a few minutes. I think we're fixing to get a little Star Spangled Banner.
Yeah, we do. We probably should get off before that happens.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure we're going to get this taken down for all the music behind us, but
What?
I think we're about to get all the music taken. This might get taken down because of the music. I don't know.
Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see how prevalent it is in the background. But want to say a quick, what's up to our people behind us?
Got a lot of waivers today. I like it.
Yeah.
People get involved. I love having the TV here because we can see what's going on. We can see what Joseph kind of buttons Joseph is pushing back there. You know, where the cameras are at.
Hey, shout out to
Joseph and Grant.
Outstanding. Outstanding.
Thank you, boys.
We also have the future mayor of Chattanooga, Tennessee. And about 25, 30 years? No. I'm talking about Lil Gracie.
Oh, yeah. I think you got to be 33.
Yeah, 33.
33 years.
Yeah.
There she is.
And, of course, the fearless leader, co-leader of the Green household.
Yes, Hannah Green.
Hi, Hannah Green. Mama.
Looking like
Green.
a sporty mom over there.
Yeah, she is.
I mean, just the look is crazy. I mean, coziest
the cozy
family. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Well, I want to say thank you to, obviously, Dalton Wasserman, Pro Football Focus analyst, for coming on with us. Matt, what's his last name? Can you say it for me one more
Caniglio.
time? There you go, Caniglio from the
Gotcha,
Section
dog.
109 podcast.
Phonetics.
And Doug Roberson from Atlanta United from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. For Chase Green, Malcolm Harris, I'm Greg Larnard. Follow us all over social media and wherever you get your podcasts at Chatted Up Sports. We love y'all. Again, enjoy the city. Be good. Enjoy your weekend. We will see you virtually on Monday.
Virtually
I
Monday?
believe so.
Yeah.
Virtually on Monday. We'll see you then. Peace.